I stood on the porch of my parents' suburban home in Fremont, Oregon, gripping a bottle of Pinot Noir in one hand and a basket of pastel-colored hand-dipped chocolate eggs in the other. I'd even worn that ridiculous seafoam shirt my mom used to say brought out my eyes, back when she still looked at me like her son and not a walking bank account. The door creaked open, but instead of a warm smile or even a sarcastic, "Look who finally showed up," I got 3 clipped words that punched the air right out of my lungs. "Don't come in. No hug. No happy Easter." Just that. Cold. Barely a whisper. I blinked. "Are you serious?" Mom stepped outside, gently pulling the door closed behind her until it was just a sliver open, like I was a stray dog she didn't want slipping inside. "It's better if you didn't come in today," she whispered, eyes darting behind her. "Your sister said she won't stay if you're here." Of course. Brianna. There it was. The usual invisible leash, yanked again. I glanced past her shoulder and heard laughter inside, wine glasses clinking. Someone, probably Uncle Rob, snorted, "Cheers to real family being together." Then Brianna's voice rang out like a chime made of poison. This year's just so calm, peaceful, no negativity, no drama. I wanted to throw the wine bottle at the wall. Instead, I smiled, the kind of smile that says, "Watch closely because the show's about to start." "You know what?" I pulled out my phone. "Fine. Enjoy your peaceful little Easter." Mom frowned, sensing something was off. "What do you mean?" "Just don't expect my $200 anymore." Her face twisted like she'd bitten into a lemon. "What money?" "The power, the water, the internet, the streaming services, the bills I've been paying every month for this house. You said it was temporary. Until Dad found stable work again." I tilted my phone toward her, thumb hovering over an app. "Guess what? They're all in my name. And I just shut them off." She paled. "No, you didn't. You wouldn't." "Tap. From." Inside, Brianna's voice shot through the air like a missile. "What the hell? The Wi-Fi's out." Mom lunged for my phone, but I stepped back. "Happy Easter," I said coolly. Then I turned and walked to my car, not waiting for applause. No one followed. No one apologized. As I reversed down the driveway, I saw Brianna rush to the front step, her face a tomato-red mess, waving her phone like a flare. "Are you insane? We were about to eat." I rolled down the window, gave her a 2-finger wave. "Call your real family. Maybe they'll cover next." Then I drove away. Windows down, music up, heart thudding in a way that felt unfamiliar. Not fear, not guilt. Relief. For the first time in years, I wasn't their personal utilities fairy. For the first time in years, I was free. I used to tell myself I was being helpful. I was the responsible one. The good son. The reliable older brother who didn't drink too much or crash cars or ghost family dinners. The one who kept the lights on when Dad got laid off 2 years ago and never got back on his feet. The one who paid Mom's credit card bill when she said she'd forgotten again. I believed helping them meant loving them. That letting myself get drained dry was some badge of honor. Then Brianna got her lease denied and just needed a co-signer for 1 year. That 1 year turned into 2. I ended up covering the insurance and the overdue payments. She didn't even say thank you, just posted vacation selfies in Cancun with captions like, "Hard work pays off." Hard work, my ass. Meanwhile, I was skipping lunch to hit my mortgage. It wasn't just Brianna. Mom needed dental work that wasn't covered. Dad needed a little boost to make rent for his new workshop. Even my cousin Marcus asked for a $500 short-term favor, which turned into a ghost story. And through it all, I stayed quiet, because if I didn't, I was selfish. Cold. Bitter. It finally snapped the day I checked my bank app and saw $200 sent to them over the last year, and not just for essentials. There were Apple Pay charges for stuff I'd never touched, a new iPhone, 2 streaming subscriptions I didn't recognize, a damn air fryer. A wellness retreat Brianna said was transformative. She paid for it all with the emergency credit card I'd given Mom. Only for real needs, I had said. When I confronted her, she just sighed. "You make more than all of us combined. It's not like you're hurting." No, I wasn't hurting, I was numb. That Easter was the tipping point. I'd driven 3 hours, booked Monday off, showed up with thoughtful gifts and good intentions. They didn't even let me through the door, so I did what they never expected. I pulled the plug. Literally, lights out. Wi-Fi gone. Streaming apps canceled. Every tap and flicker that kept their little world running, silenced with a thumbprint. As I sat in my car, I watched the porch light flicker off. Sprinklers stopped mid-rotation. Brianna came out 5 minutes later like a banshee screaming, "What did you do?" I didn't flinch. You wanted a drama-free Easter? I said. Well, this is me stepping out of the script. And I drove off. By the time I got back to my apartment that evening, I had 32 missed calls, 14 voicemails, and 5 barely coherent texts from Brianna alone, each one more aggressive than the last. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I poured myself a glass of wine, sank into the couch, and listened to silence. Beautiful, heavy silence. Not even halfway through my second sip, a loud, frantic knock echoed through my front door. I didn't need a peephole to guess who it was. Open the door. Brianna's voice screeched. You think this is funny? The kids were crying. Mom chimed in next, her voice teetering between sobs and accusations. You embarrassed us in front of everyone. What is wrong with you? I stared at the door and said nothing. Let them yell, let them stew. Another hard knock, then another, then silence. But not for long. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed again. This time a voicemail from Dad. His tone was low, controlled, dangerous. Fix this, Adam. Now. You're not the only one who knows how to shut things down. That made me laugh. Dad could barely reset the Wi-Fi router without Googling it 5 times. But that threat, it wasn't about technology, it was about control. And he hated not having it. Still, I didn't budge. 3 days passed. On day 4, I received a call at work from HR. Apparently, my father had emailed my boss. He claimed I was emotionally unstable and had threatened to financially sabotage the family, dragging in company assets to do it. It was a ridiculous accusation, obviously false, but enough to trigger an internal meeting. I walked into the conference room, cheeks burning, heart pounding. My manager pulled up the email. I could barely breathe. Do you have any idea who would send this? She asked. I stared at the screen where my own father's name glared back at me. Yes, I said. Unfortunately, I do. She leaned back, watching me carefully. Anything we should be concerned about? I forced a smile. Only that I've finally started setting boundaries. To her credit, she got it. She'd seen people unravel under family pressure before. Still, I knew one thing for certain now. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was war. I didn't retaliate immediately. That's not my style. I waited. I listened. And I planned. A week later, I paid off Brianna's remaining car payments in full. It was my name on the lease anyway. Then I called the dealership and had the car legally transferred to her, with a $0 balance and a surprise clause. The registration had been switched to her husband, and the insurance canceled. Let her explain that to Greg when she got pulled. But the real revenge was quiet. I changed all my passwords, locked down every account, removed every shared login they'd been mooching from for years. Netflix, gone. Spotify, deactivated Amazon Prime, history. Even the family group calendar, yes, they used mine to plan birthdays and events, was deleted. Suddenly their world stopped syncing, their routines shattered. You'd be amazed how quickly people lose their grip without their digital crutches. The final straw came 2 weeks later, when I received a certified letter, a letter who even sends those anymore. Inside, scribbled in Mom's flowery handwriting, was a 3-page guilt bomb. The first sentence, you used to be such a kind boy. The last, if you don't come back to us, you'll regret it forever. I folded it neatly, then fed it into my shredder 1 line at a time, but something inside me twisted. Not because I felt guilty, but because I realized just how much they relied on guilt to keep me in their orbit. I wasn't the son anymore. I was a lifeline, and lifelines don't get to have feelings, just functions. Later that night, something strange happened. I got a text from someone I hadn't spoken to in nearly a decade, my cousin Jeremy. He was at the infamous Easter dinner, when everything went down. Sat quietly in the corner sipping iced tea, watching the chaos unfold like it was a reality show. His message was simple. Hey, I know it's not my place, but what you did, that took guts. Just wanted you to know. Someone saw it, and understood. I stared at it for a long time. Someone saw me, not the money, not the responsibilities. Me, I replied, thanks, you have no idea how much that means. Then he said something that made me stop breathing. You weren't the only one they drained. It was like a dam burst. Over the next few days, other relatives started reaching out, quietly, privately. People I thought had been indifferent, an aunt, a second cousin. Even Greg, Brianna's own husband. All of them had stories. Money borrowed and never returned. Favors turned into obligations. Guilt used like a scalpel. Suddenly, I wasn't alone. Suddenly, I was free. And not just from them, but from the lie that I was ever the problem. It's funny how quiet people get when the power shifts. The same relatives who once rolled their eyes at me across dinner tables were now dropping hints of their own horror stories. Uncle Stan, who always called me the serious one, messaged me late one night. They borrowed $2,000 from me for a roof leak 3 years ago. There was no leak, just a cruise. Even Aunt Denise confessed she'd been paying Brianna's credit card minimums without realizing her name was listed as a secondary account holder. The deeper I looked, the more I realized I wasn't the outlier. Was just the first one who said no out loud. About a month after the Easter blackout, I got a call from Greg, Brianna's husband. Now, Greg and I were never close. Honestly, I always thought he was either willfully blind or completely spineless. But that day, his voice sounded different, sharper, tired. "Can we meet?" he asked. "Somewhere neutral." I hesitated, but curiosity won. We met at a diner off Route 84, just outside Salem. Neutral enough. He looked rough, unshaven, eye bags, like bruises. He didn't even start with small talk. "I want out," he said. I raised an eyebrow. "Of what? Your marriage?" He nodded. "Yeah, that too, but more than that. The whole system. Your family, our family, whatever you want to call it. It's a scam, and I helped run it." He leaned in and lowered his voice. "She's been lying to everyone. The debt, the purchases, the spa trips, those weren't for therapy, they were for fun. She even faked an injury last year to avoid working for 3 months and guilt your mom into covering our rent." My stomach twisted. I should have been shocked, but I wasn't. Not really. Greg pulled out a folder. Yes, an actual manila folder like something from a detective movie. Inside, printouts, bank transfers, screenshots. Even a Venmo history that showed Brianna receiving reimbursement payments from Mom after pretending to cover household bills herself. "She's been laundering guilt through your mother," he said. "And your mom, she's complicit." I looked at him, trying to read the angle. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because I'm done," he said. "And you're the only one who stood up to her. I figured maybe you'd know what to do." Oh, I knew exactly what to do. I waited until the family's annual Memorial Day barbecue. Yes, they still tried to host one. And yes, I was still not welcome. Perfect. I knew they'd post about it. Sure enough, Brianna uploaded an Instagram reel. Picnic tables, matching shirts, a caption that read, "Family is everything, grateful the blessed." I uploaded something too. A Dropbox link, public, unlisted, but traceable. Inside, every receipt, every screenshot, every reimbursement labeled with dates, amounts, and recipients. I didn't caption it. I didn't share it wide. Just sent it to 4 people. Uncle Stan, Aunt Denise, Cousin Jeremy, and my mom. Within an hour, I got a text from my mom. "What is this? Where did you get this?" I didn't respond. 2 hours later, my phone rang. It was Aunt Denise. "Adam, thank you. You just saved me from filing for bankruptcy," she cried. On the phone, while sitting in her car outside the barbecue, unable to walk back into the party. The family facade cracked, and the more it cracked, the more it splintered. The next week, Mom showed up at my apartment, unannounced, red eyes, clutching a tote, bag full of documents and framed photos like she was trying to trade memories for mercy. I didn't open the door right away, just watched through the peephole. She knocked again, softly this time. "I didn't know it was this bad," she said. "I thought Brianna was just struggling. I didn't know she lied to you, to me, to everyone." Finally opened the door, but just enough to look her in the eye. "That's not true," I said. "You didn't want to know." She didn't deny it. "I was tired," she whispered, and she always had an explanation. "And when you started setting boundaries, it was just easier to lean on her." "And when she told you not to invite me to Easter?" I asked. She swallowed. "That was me too." There it was, finally, the honesty I'd been begging for, but it didn't feel like justice. It just felt empty. She didn't come in. I didn't invite her, but as she walked away, she turned back and said something that stuck with me. "You know, I always thought you were too serious, too cold. But now I think maybe you were the only one who wasn't faking it." That line. It hit harder than any insult ever could, because for the first time I saw the truth. They weren't angry at me for being cruel. They were angry because I was the only one who stopped pretending. The fallout didn't end there. Brianna went silent on social media for a week, then re-emerged with a vague post about being targeted by toxic energy and how haters can't dim your shine. The comments were a mess, half of them supportive, the other half not so much. Apparently, word had spread. She lost 2 freelance clients and was forced to move in with a friend because Greg had finally filed for separation and frozen their joint account. The ripple effect was real. But me, I was finally still. Not vengeful. Not bitter. Just still. For the first time in over a decade, I didn't owe anyone an explanation, or a payment, or a fake smile at a barbecue. It's wild how quiet life gets when you stop playing the hero in everyone else's disaster. I didn't realize how much noise they brought into my world until it was gone. No more late-night phone calls begging for a favor. No more guilt-soaked group texts or veiled insults dressed as jokes. No more emotional ransoms hidden behind birthday cakes and fake smiles. Just me, my space, my rules, and silence. Delicious. Unapologetic silence. But silence doesn't last long in my family. They don't understand stillness. They interpret it as weakness, as an opening. So I wasn't surprised when, a few weeks after the Easter fallout and the Dropbox drop, Brianna tried to regain control. She started small, Instagram stories with subtweets like, "Some people only feel powerful when they're hurting others." Sad, really. Then came the inspirational quotes about forgiveness posted over selfies with perfect lighting. But then she got bold. I got an email from a lawyer. The subject line? Defamation and harassment. Cease and desist. For a moment I panicked. Then I opened the PDF. It was a joke. She'd hired some online paralegal service and was threatening to sue me for libel, emotional distress, and financial sabotage. The best part? She included screenshots of her own texts to me as evidence. No, the ones where she called me a traitor, a psycho, and at one point a barren snake. Real courtroom gold. Still, I wasn't stupid. I forwarded everything to a real lawyer. His response? "This is garbage, and whoever wrote it clearly never passed the bar." Then he added, "But if she escalates, we'll be ready." I smiled. For once, I was ready too. Then came the smear campaign. She started calling relatives, the ones who hadn't blocked her yet, telling them I was unstable, that I'd always been jealous, that I had control issues and was on something. I heard about it from my cousin Jeremy, who texted me, "Heads up, Brianna's trying to paint you as the Unabomber at family brunch." I laughed, loudly. That's the thing about narcissists. They can't stand when their narrative crumbles, so they build new ones, fast, sloppy, desperate. But this time people didn't believe her. Too much truth had already leaked. Too many seats, and the quiet allies? They started speaking up. Uncle Stan confronted her during a family dinner. Aunt Denise removed her from the will. Even Mom, slowly, hesitantly, began distancing herself. "You went too far," she told Brianna in a voicemail I wasn't supposed to hear. "You don't burn bridges with someone who fed you." Oof, that one must have stung. Then something unexpected happened. I got invited to dinner by Mom. Not a group thing, just her, at a quiet Italian place halfway between our homes. I debated going. I really did. But curiosity and closure won out. When I arrived, she was already seated. No dramatic entrance, no tears, just 2 glasses of water and a faint smile. "I'm not here to guilt you," she said. "Good," I replied. "Because that well ran dry," she nodded. "I deserve that." Then slowly she started talking. About how her parents raised her to keep the family together no matter what. About how she learned to tolerate things that hurt, because it was easier than confronting them. About how she leaned on me because I let her. "I didn't realize I was breaking you," she whispered. "Until you broke away." For a moment I didn't know what to say. I wanted to stay angry, to throw the pain back in her face. But all I felt was tired. So I told her the truth. "You didn't break me, Mom. You trained me to break myself." We sat in silence for a while. She reached for my hand. I let her. Not because I forgave her, but because I finally forgave myself. The next day, I got a message from Greg. Apparently, Brianna had tried to move in with a friend who quickly kicked her out for toxic behavior. "She's spiraling," he wrote. "Honestly, I think she expected you to cave by now." I didn't reply. I didn't care. Not in the cold, heartless way people assume, but in the peaceful, healed kind of way. The kind where you realize that protecting your peace means letting some people lose access to you forever. I started noticing changes. Little things at first. I stopped checking my bank app with dread. I stopped rehearsing excuses. In my head before every phone call. I stopped bracing for the next emotional ambush. And then, one morning, I woke up and realized I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't waiting for an apology that would never come. I wasn't hoping they'd change. Wasn't trying to rewrite the past. I was just living. I picked up hobbies I'd shelved for years. Joined a guitar circle on Thursdays. Started baking. Real stuff, not frozen dough. I even signed up for a local open mic night. Yeah, me, the serious one. The cold one. Reading poetry out loud in a room full of strangers, and laughing when I messed up. And one night after a quiet dinner and a good movie, I stood by my window sipping tea and realized something truly wild. I was happy. Not performative happy. Not holiday card happy. Just content. No strings, no lies, no hidden bills disguised as love. Just me, my space, and the silence I chose. And in that moment, I finally understood. Being the villain in their story didn't make me bad. It made me free. Peace doesn't last in a family that feeds on chaos. I thought I was past it. Thought I'd done the hard part, set the boundary, enforced it, rebuilt my life. But trauma doesn't knock politely. Doesn't ask if you're ready before it comes storming back in. Sometimes it just shows up, uninvited, with a suitcase and a smile that doesn't reach the eyes. It was late June when the storm hit. I'd just gotten back from a weekend camping trip, real off-the-grid stuff. No phone, no signal, just trees, stars, and the sound of my own breathing. I was unpacking my gear, still riding that rare high of actual peace, when I noticed a car parked outside my building. White BMW driver's side, window down, and behind the wheel, Brianna. I froze. She hadn't contacted me in weeks. I assumed she'd finally slithered off to find someone else to leech from. Apparently not. She saw me and immediately got out, sunglasses sliding up her forehead. "Hey," she said, like we were college friends bumping into each other at Starbucks. "What are you doing here?" I asked, not moving. "I need a place to stay." I laughed. Out loud. She blinked, surprised. "I'm serious," she said. "I'm out of options. Mom won't take me in. Greg changed the locks. I've got nowhere else to go." She was right. She had nowhere else to go. But that didn't mean here was on the table. "I'm not your emergency contact," I said, voice even. "And I'm not your backup plan." She frowned. "You're really gonna let your sister be homeless?" "Didn't seem to bother you when I was drowning in debt to keep your lights on," I said. Her eyes narrowed. "You're seriously going to punish me like this? Over a few mistakes?" I stepped forward just enough to make it clear I wasn't joking. "You didn't make mistakes, Brianna. You made choices, repeatedly, deliberately, and now those choices have consequences." "You've changed," she muttered. "Yeah," I said. "That's the point." And then I turned and walked inside, left her standing there with her fake tears and designer tote bag packed full of regrets. I thought that was the end of it. But with people like Brianna, there's always a second act. 2 days later, my building manager called. "Hey, Adam," he said. "Strange thing, there was a woman outside claiming to be your wife. Said she lost her key and needed to be buzzed in." I sighed. "Let me guess, blonde, loud, complains about gluten in the paint." He chuckled. "That's her. She's not my wife, she's not even invited. No worries, we didn't let her in. But the fact that she tried, that chilled me." The next week I came home to find a sticky note on my door, in Brianna's handwriting. "I know I messed up, but you're my brother. Family doesn't give up on each other." Call me, I tore it up without reading the rest. Then I changed the locks, again, but it wasn't over. A few days later I got a call from Mom. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened, curious. "Adam, please. She's not well. She's staying in a shelter now. She keeps talking about you, about how you abandoned her. I know she's made mistakes, but she's still your sister. Can't you just talk to her?" I almost deleted the message, but I didn't. Because a small, stupid part of me, the part that still believed in birthday wishes and family loyalty, wanted to know if Brianna was really that far gone. So I called the shelter. Not to pick her up. Just to verify. The woman on the phone confirmed it. Yes, she was there. Yes, she'd been checked in. Yes, she'd mentioned my name, a lot. And then, the woman paused. "Sorry, just... I don't mean to pry," she said. "But she keeps saying, how generous you used to be. That you'd always save her, that you'd snap out of it eventually." My stomach twisted. Even now, even here, she believed I was just waiting to forgive her. That all of this, the boundaries, the silence, the distance, was just an act, a phase. That night I sat with it. The guilt, the grief, the sick realization that no matter how far I pulled away, she still thought she owned a part of me. But something had changed. I wasn't confused anymore. I wasn't torn between loyalty and self-respect. I was done. I wrote her a letter, not a sweet one, Not cruel either. Just the truth. I told her I loved her once, told her I hoped she got the help she needed, told her that I wished things had been different, but they weren't, and most of all, I told her that I wouldn't be saving her again. Not now, not ever. I dropped it off at the shelter the next morning. No note, no signature, just a sealed envelope. Days passed, no response. I waited for backlash, for another ambush, but nothing came. Maybe she finally got it. Maybe she didn't. But it didn't matter anymore because I'd said everything I needed to say. And for the first time, it didn't feel like burning a bridge. It felt like closing a door, quietly, permanently. Summer turned into fall, and with the changing leaves came the final act. I had almost forgotten what it felt like to be in survival mode. The mental checklist, the emotional armor, the constant scanning of my phone for warning signs that someone from my past was about to crash into my present. But weeks passed, then months, and nothing came. Not from Brianna, not from Mom, not from anyone. At first it was unsettling, like the eye of a storm. Too calm to trust. Then I realized it wasn't calm, it was peace because they weren't holding back. They were regrouping. Thanksgiving arrived with the subtle tension of a horror film soundtrack. I made plans with a friend group that had become like my second family. People who didn't ask for sacrifices in exchange for affection. Just as we were about to dig into a potluck feast, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Voicemail. I ignored it. But when I got home later that night, curiosity cracked the door open again. I pressed play. It was Dad. His voice sounded older, raspier, like someone trying to speak through dust. Hey, it's been a while. We're getting everyone together for Christmas, just us, just family. It's not the same without you. Thought maybe you'd want to come by. Click, no apology, no ownership, just a baited hook dipped in nostalgia. I should have deleted it, but instead I sat with it. What if I went? What if I just showed up, not to make peace, but to see, really see what I'd left behind? Not because I missed them, but because I no longer needed them. Christmas Eve. I parked 3 houses. Down the old place looked the same. Wreath on the door. Light slightly lopsided, Mom's touch. But something felt off. It wasn't until I got closer that I realized the lights weren't just dim. They were flickering. That's when it hit me. They'd forgotten to pay the electric bill. Again. I stood on the sidewalk in the cold, watching my past blink like a dying signal. Then I heard it. The door creaked open, and Dad stepped out. Rubbing his arms in the cold, he didn't see me. He was too busy fumbling with a power bank and muttering about extension cords. Then Brianna appeared behind him, wrapped in a blanket, looking like a worn-out ghost of herself. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger, I felt pity. Because there it was, the truth, raw and real. Without me, the machine broke. Not because I was the golden child, but because I was the glue. And now, without someone to patch the cracks, the whole thing was crumbling. Didn't go in. I turned around, walked back to my car, and drove away without regret. I wasn't theirs anymore. Not their solution, not their scapegoat, not their savior. I was just me. And that was enough. The next day, I got one final message. Group text from Mom, I hope you're happy. You've destroyed this family. For the first time in my life, I didn't hesitate. I typed exactly one line. No, I just stopped letting you destroy me. Then I left the group chat. Forever. Since then, things have been different. Quiet. Yes. But full of real friendships. Of hobbies that no longer feel like distractions but passions. Of weekends that belong entirely to me. I started dating again. Took a solo trip to Seattle just because I wanted to. And every once in a while when I catch myself wondering how they're doing, I stop. Because it doesn't matter. Not in the cruel, heartless way they'd accuse me of. But in the healed way, in the free way. People always talk about closure like it's a conversation, a final meeting, a tearful apology. But the truth. Closure is a decision. It's a door you lock from the inside. It's realizing you were never going to get the ending you deserved, and being okay with writing your own instead. So here's mine. To the family who taught me how to endure, thank you. To the sister who taught me what manipulation looks like up close, I see you now. To the parents who raised me to believe love was earned, not given. I've unlearned that lesson. And to myself, the version of me who once believed he had to bleed to be good, you made it out, and that's the real happy ending. That's the end of today's story. Did things turn out the way you thought, or were there some surprises along the way? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to hit the like button. And if you haven't joined the community yet, now's the perfect time. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you're always the first to catch new stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next adventure.